our fall media opportunities training. So this is our focus tonight for CCL's weekly webinar program, where we are giving volunteers like you access to in-depth learning opportunities on topics related to climate change and effective climate advocacy. So I'm one of your hosts tonight. I'm Flannery Winchester. I'm CCL's VP of Communications. And so tonight we're talking about fall media opportunities. So everything that's coming up over the next few months that we see as good opportunities to engage with your local media and to lay groundwork for 2025. That's me. As I said, I'm Vice President of Communications for CCL. I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, and I've been based in Atlanta, Georgia for, I guess, about 11 years now. And I joined CCL staff in 2017, and I have a toddler and a golden retriever, and a husband who is managing both of them at this current moment. So that's a little bit about me. On the call tonight, we also have Charlotte Ward. So Charlotte is our communications and media manager. She's originally from Wiltshire. Am I saying that right, Charlotte? Wiltshire?
Wiltshire, yeah.
Okay, there we go. Thank you for keeping me straight on that. In the UK, and now she lives in South Carolina. She actually started our Greenville chapter of CCL in 2019, and then came on staff with us in 2021. And she has two little environmentalists at home as well, who are delights. And we also have Annika Ingracia on our call helping out too. She is our communications intern she was with us in the summer and staying on through the fall. She's originally from Lake Forest, California, and now she's in Chicago. And she has studied environmental studies and environmental communication at DePaul. So that's us. We are gonna go through all the content together tonight. So what we'll do on the call is we'll talk through the media opportunities for the next few months. And then Charlotte's going to dive into our latest opportunities and resources to help you take advantage of those media opportunities. And then Annika is going to walk us through a roundup of some great volunteer media that we've seen recently. And then we'll take time for questions. So what can we focus on now in terms of what the media is thinking about, what we want to talk about in terms of climate change and how those two kind of interact? So the first opportunity is to keep the Electrification Month messages going. So last month in CCL, we had Electrification Month, where we were focused on getting the word out about home electrification and the rebates and incentives, financial incentives to make those upgrades. And so we actually exceeded our conversations goal. We had set a goal of 3,000 conversations, and just within the month of August, we had 3,400 conversations. And what's happening now, even though our official Electrification Month is over, we're seeing that the rebates from the Inflation Reduction Act are continuing to roll out state by state. So even though we're not officially in Electrification Month anymore, it's still a great time to be talking about this stuff in your communities and as you're tabling and things like that, but also as a media opportunity. So we had an op-ed template in August that was focused on these Electrification Month messages, and we've given that a little refresh, and we encourage you to submit that to your newspaper if you haven't already. So Charlotte will touch more on that template in a little bit later in the call. And then, of course, one of the other major media stories this fall is the upcoming election on November 5th. So this is a big national topic that creates plenty of opportunities for us to insert climate change in the conversation. And we can expect lots of coverage across every community as folks are paying attention to the candidates on the ballot and their stance on the issues and so on. So one of the biggest issues in the election, well, in almost any election, is the economy. So we have prepared a new op-ed outline for you to follow that connects these two issues, climate change and the economy. And it argues that climate change should really be treated on the same level as the economy, because it's such a factor in our economic success or our economic struggles as a country. So Charlotte will go over that outline in more detail in just a little bit. And then the last thing, oh no, one more thing I wanted to say on that. Hopefully in the coming weeks, you'll see a national op-ed from our director, Rachel Carestis, making a similar argument. So if your chapters can put out a version of it in your local media market, it's going to echo and support the argument that Rachel, our executive director, is going to make at the national level. So we can kind of hit it from all sides there, national media and local media. And one more thing I wanted to note on the election topic, just a reminder that we have an election season media kit that has plenty of tips about how to approach LTEs, reporter meetings, editorial board outreach, and all sorts of stuff from a nonpartisan angle and in a way that elevates the climate issue for all the candidates in your area. So just a reminder that that's out there. It's on CCL Community already. And if you want to go, that's there if you want to go above and beyond the op-ed outline that Charlotte will walk us through tonight. And so the last thing I wanted to note on here is, let's see, is the potential for climate policy that we've been working on to move forward in the lame duck period. So the lame duck period is after the election when folks have lost or won their races. Congress is wrapping up. We're sort of waiting for this new Congress to come in January. And there's a lot of potential for things to move forward. So the one in particular that we expect to really put a lot of kind of muscle behind is the Energy Permitting Reform Act. So as you may know, this is a bipartisan bill that was introduced on July 22nd by Independent Senator Joe Manchin and Republican Senator John Barrasso. And it includes a lot of measures like what we've been asking Congress for months, because we've been working on clean energy permitting reform since really the beginning of this Congress. And so we were excited to see this bill. And it started to move forward pretty quickly. So it was set for committee markup and vote in that committee, the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, on July 31st. So we already kind of sprang into action around this. We mobilized over 500 calls to the senators on the committee to encourage them to vote in support of the bill. And it did ultimately pass committee with a vote of 15-4. So it had bipartisan support, passed out of the committee. And then right now we're in the middle of a mobilization to write to Congress about this bill. And we actually just today, I saw that we have exceeded our goal of 7,000 messages, and we're still going. So most likely there will be a good chance to keep moving this bill forward in the lame duck session. And we also could see movement on some of our secondary ask bills, like if they get included in bigger omnibus bills, like spending bills, or the National Defense Authorization Act are two things that will need to move forward by the end of the year. So we'll keep you posted as all of that develops, but there may be opportunities to write appreciative letters to the editor that name your member of Congress and appreciate them for votes that they take to advance climate-friendly legislation in that lame duck period. So writ large, those are the media opportunities coming up this fall. And volunteers are already finding success pursuing this topic in the media. And so I want to show one good example. So this is a story that ran just a few days ago from CBS News, and it features one of our conservative volunteers in Texas. So I want to show you guys the first couple of minutes.
43 days to go until the election, and there's a new poll out that shows us Texans may not be as divided over climate change as some might assume. So the poll comes from the Yale Program of Climate Change Communication, shows 3 out of 4 Texans do think global warming is happening, and nearly 2 out of 3 folks here in Texas say they're worried about it. But you may not know that based on what some politicians say out on the campaign trail. So tonight, ITN reporter Brian New is delving into the disconnect between the public opinion we see and political rhetoric.
So when did you install the solar panels?
So I kind of did it in 2 waves. The first one was in 2012.
From the top of his roof to the car inside his garage. Larry Howe's concern about the climate is what drives him.
The science is pretty well established. You keep adding more heat trapping gases in the atmosphere, what's going to happen? You're going to trap more heat.
Some might quickly stereotype this Plano resident as a liberal environmentalist, but Howe is a lifelong Republican. And with the election nearing, Howe says he finds himself at a crossroad.
If you want my vote, you got to step up on climate and prioritize the issue. Because if you're not prioritizing that issue with that body of evidence on it, then how can I trust you on any of those other issues?
Yale University public opinion polling found 56% of Texans believe global warming is caused mostly by human activity. In Congress, 149 Republican members, including 10 from Texas, have publicly questioned the role humans have had on climate change. The Yale polling also revealed how 71% of Texans support regulating carbon dioxide as a pollutant. However, this year's Texas GOP platform supports the reclassification of carbon dioxide as a non-pollutant.
So do you feel like your opinions on climate change, do they align with the Republican Party here in Texas?
No, not now. No, not at all.
Am I concerned about the environment? Absolutely. But I don't want to see us get into a state.
All right, so we're going to pause there, but that's actually, you can see from the timestamp down here, that's actually a 6-minute segment. So it's a really nice piece. And our fellow CCLer, Larry Howe, got, top billing in that segment for his activity and also his perspective on kind of what he hopes to see from lawmakers and what he expects to see about such a serious issue. So that's just to show you that election season stuff is underway and can be really
43 days to go until the election, and there's a
don't play more. We have other slides. There we go. Okay. All right. So with that, I am now going to hand it over to Charlotte to talk to us about our latest opportunities and resources for you to jump into any of those topics.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so we've been thinking about this angle that obviously Flannery outlined for you earlier. Rachel, our executive director, will be doing her national piece, but we wanted to inspire you to do your own pieces wherever you live. So I have just put the link in the chat for you for where you can download this outline that we've prepared. And this outline is themed around the election, the economy, and climate change. It has suggestions of how you can write an original op-ed connecting the election, economic concerns, and climate change. It's available to download, as I said, on that link right there. And you can also check out the thread on the Writers' Circle Forum for inspiration. I will put that in the chat in a second, but we're encouraging people to think about what they would write about for this op-ed and then share it in the Writers' Circle so that everybody can be inspired by each other. And you can see here, I've just done a screen grab of what it looks like. And I've tried to put some examples in there of like things that you could think about writing about. So we want to think about what is really important in your state, like what climate change effects you're seeing and how they impact your local economy. So as you're going through this outline, you'll see guidance, but we want to encourage you to start strong with a local perspective. So you can open with a paragraph about what's a unique draw for visitors to your state and how it's a source of pride that tourists flock there to experience it. And then for the next paragraph, you can detail how climate change threatens this pastime, the unique place or experience, or perhaps a leisure activity. So I tried to pull out some headlines here on this page just to inspire you. So in Alaska, the most popular national park is threatened, the road into it is threatened by climate change. So if you're in Alaska, that might be something that you know is like a very serious issue, not only for the locals, but also for tourism. And then you can see in the Midwest, warm winter threatens recreation. There's some examples there from Minnesota. And then there's another one there, climate change, intensified summer heat is already impacting outdoor recreation. That was actually in Utah. So if you have a think. If you have a look, I normally just Google my state and climate change and see what's been going on. I mean, I have a fair idea, but just have a look through what's coming up in the local media, and perhaps you'll find something. And you also know like what's important in terms of tourism and things people like to do in your state. So just think about the connections of how things connect to climate change. So for example, we have very popular beach resorts in South Carolina, but when we have hurricanes, when we have flooding, people can't enjoy those. And we also are at risk of rising sea levels. So some of those beautiful beaches might not even be there in decades. So I would think about all those things as I was working out my particular op-ed. So just before we go to the next slide, I wanted to invite you to maybe share. If anyone has an idea, we'd love to hear it, because when we brainstorm together, it might ignite an idea for someone else. So does anybody want to share like, what immediately comes to mind for them?
I can say one from Georgia, even though I'm not officially a guest on the call. I'm running the call. But one thing, you know, everybody knows Georgia for Georgia peaches, and like we have so many sort of like pick your own produce in the fall. We have like apples all in the north of the state and things like that. That like that's a that's kind of our spin on tourism, is like that's something that people come to do and really enjoy doing. And I feel like every year there's articles about, oh, we didn't have enough cold hours for a good crop, like things like that. And so it's you know, people not paying close attention to climate change may not connect the dots. And so it's a good opportunity for us to sort of say, hey, there's this economic thing going on in our state that we're all, you know, that we're concerned about, and then connect the dots back to climate change about why that's happening.
Thanks, Flannery.
Sure.
All right, I've invited you to also share in the chat, so please feel free, if something comes to mind, share it, and perhaps it will inspire someone else on the call. All right, we'll go next slide. So climate and economic health. We know the economy is a leading issue that sways voters, but the economy and climate are not separate. Climate solutions are necessary. We know that we need them. Otherwise, things are just going to escalate at a speed that we can't keep up with. And that just is extremely costly. So the points you could make as you're thinking about your op-ed, you could talk about how climate change is not a future issue. It's already a drag on our state's economy. Extreme weather events are becoming more frequent, costly, and disruptive to key industries, infrastructure, and residential areas. So think about what's occurred in your state or region. And then an increased number of Americans are losing work due to inclement weather. So we know that there was some research recently that I think I have linked to in that outline. So you should be able to find the article that showed that a really big number of Americans were impacted, including by, was it Beryl that was in Texas? Is that the name of the hurricane in Texas? Anybody know?
Which, when?
Is it Beryl? What was the hurricane in Texas recently? It was Beryl, yeah. So that really affected people's livelihoods when they couldn't go to work. So all those things you can kind of include. We know that the US was hit with a historic number of billion-dollar disasters last year, and global warming worsened weather extremes are rendering homeowner insurance unprofitable. So we know that some insurance companies are pulling out of states like Florida and California because they are just being hit with so many claims because of the situation with escalating climate extremes. So any of those things, they're really important ways you can connect climate and the economy. And you can see, I just kind of Googled today and I found these articles kind of on the right there. So if you just have a look and see what you can find, I'm sure you could find some facts for your own state.
Oh, before we advance, I'll give a quick shout out. Brian put in the chat that fall sports such as football have risks in a hotter climate. Players and fans suffer from extreme heat when in years past temperatures were cooler.
Yeah, and Little League and stuff like that, for sure. And Lynn's come up with that one too. Yeah, I saw that, Lynn, those beach houses collapsing into the ocean.
Yeah.
So it leads to less properties available to rent, higher insurance costs, formidable cost to towns and counties to shore up coastlines so that beach areas are accessible. Yeah, it's not good. All right, let's go to the next slide. So send a clear message to Congress. So universally, we care about what the future holds for our family and the folks we love. And that's across the political spectrum. And it's actually across the world. Potential Energy has done some research about what messages resonate with people when it comes to climate change. And one of the top messages is just like that idea of preserving this planet and the beauty of it and the opportunities for future generations and ensuring that they don't have just these escalating impacts of climate change that are really going to affect them. And then I'm sure a lot of you watched the presidential debate, the last one, but they didn't really make climate change a central issue. Neither answer I felt was like satisfactory to what I would have liked to have heard. So we can make the point that whether it's the presidential, state, or other candidates in our cities, they should address how the economy and climate change are intertwined and lay out their solutions for voters. And we expect that of them because it's important to us. And if your member of Congress or the candidates challenging them have acted on or talked about climate change, you could thank them. And you can abide by CCL's non-partisan values. So not endorse them, but it's fine to thank them and say, you know, I want to see every candidate step up and show that this is an important issue. And if they've said nothing, you could say something like, it's disappointing that Senator so-and-so has not yet laid out a tangible plan for how they would address climate change. I would urge them to waste no time detailing their plans for reducing climate pollution and bringing clean energy jobs to our state. So just kind of applying a little bit of pressure in your op-ed. And then finish with a strong closing argument. So the longer we fail to reduce climate pollution, the more costly climate change becomes for the economy and hardworking Americans. You can say that prioritizing climate change solutions is fiscally responsible, and addressing both the economy and the climate is not only politically advantageous, that was the word, but essential for long-term economic stability. So you can just kind of think about finishing up with a really strong point. And then the next thing I wanted to talk to you about was, some of you will be familiar, we put out a op-ed template about electrification a little while ago, and we asked you to co-author it with Rachel, our executive director, and to tailor it to where you live and then submit it to local papers. So I know some of you on this call tonight did do that. I know Alex is on the call, and you can see I have her little headline up there for Montana. And I've highlighted all the places where you've had hits. So we have California, we have Colorado, we have Texas, and we have Indiana. So if you live in another state, there's still opportunities. We want you to think about this op-ed template as well. This one, we've written the whole thing and then just put in spaces for you to tailor it to where you live. So just to put in some local impacts, talk about, well, not local impacts, you're talking about how the heat over the summer or other sort of climate things have impacted you personally, and then we pivot into clean energy solutions. So if we go to the next slide, because our headline was beat the heat and now it's fall, we have given it a bit of a tweak. So I've come up with 3 different headlines there. So you could choose any of these. You could see which one you like the sound of. We have climate proofing our homes has never been more affordable, the climate proofing perks you need to know about, the clean energy hacks reducing my household bills. And what I tried to tap into is that curiosity. We know when headlines kind of hint at something, people are more likely to read on. So that's why those headlines are like that. And as you can see there, I've suggested you begin with first person perspective of what it's been like where you live. As fall begins, it's a relief that my kids can finally play outside. That's definitely the case for me in South Carolina. It was just too hot for too long. And then it might be that you can walk your dog without fear of how the heat is affecting you both. And then you can just go through and add in details and information about where you live. And that's available again to download on the op-ed templates page, which I put the link in the chat earlier. So LTEs, we want you to keep those LTEs flowing as well. Our LTEs can outline solutions and emphasize how members of Congress and candidates who want our vote should be speaking up about climate change. We can keep making the connection between weather and climate extremes where we live and human-caused global warming. So I would, after this tropical storm, Helena, it's going to be a tropical storm when it gets to me at 4 o'clock in the morning. And we've had everybody getting really worked up for the last couple of days about it, had all the news channels and the meteorologists. And so I'm feeling quite anxious about it, but I'm going to channel that after the event into some kind of LTE or op-ed where I'm going to find out how, I know that these days you can actually get really good data that shows you how much worse a storm is because of climate change. So that's my goal. I'm going to try and find out how much more powerful Helena was because of the heat of the ocean and the heat in the atmosphere. So that'll be my goal, to write about that. And if you're in the path also, you could do that. You know what's going on where you live. It could be drought, it could be wildfires, whatever the issue is. And sadly, I think most of us have some kind of issue. None of us have fully escaped it. You can make that connection where you live, that you know people that will resonate with them, and then talk about how climate change is human caused and is just making it worse, and it will continue to do so until we implement those solutions. And we provide timely LTE topics on the media resources section of CCL community, and I'll put that link in the chat for you in a minute.
Thank you so much, Charlotte, and thank you, Flannery. I have the awesome honor of being able to read through everybody's LTEs and op-eds. A lot of the names that I recognize because I always am amazing LTEs from everyone. I also just want to apologize if I have any Wi-Fi errors or my connection's a little unstable, so I apologize. Anyways, so here, the first thing I wanted to highlight that I think is really important and I think gets a lot of traction and is really important when I'm like looking through them, because I love seeing when LTEs are highlighting the policies that CCL supports. It's really awesome, and it's really good to get the word out there. This first one I've highlighted, Valadeo, and I'm sorry if I get any of the names wrong.
No, you got
Valadeo
it.
works across
Valadeo.
Valadeo? Okay, cool. Works across the aisle on soil, water, and more. So volunteer Scott Leckrone thanked his representative David Valadeo for co-sponsoring the Prove It Act and joining 17 other House Republicans to sign a letter to the Speaker of the House asking him to protect clean energy, which is so awesome. We love seeing that. This other one here to the right, I just love the title, To Save the Planet, Polluters Must Pay. I think it's pretty clear, and I love it. It's from CCL group leader Bruce Cooper of the Slippery Rock chapter, and he also wrote about highlighting the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, which is another policy that CCL supports, and it's just like, it's awesome when you can take like a topic that you're passionate about, or you find a way that it interconnects with a CCL policy. I think that's awesome. And it really catches my eye for sure. It catches the reader's eye as well. And then this last one is from Nate Marshall, talking about or thanking Senator Daines for bipartisan leadership in supporting the Energy Permitting Reform Act. We love to see it. So yeah, keep it coming. Yes, so we've been talking about this a lot already throughout the call. But as we all know, electrification, it was just Electrification Month. It's very important that we talk about this. So since the beginning of August, CCL chapters have been talking to their communities about electrifying their homes, and we've been pleased to see some great media work sharing the cutting edge clean energy options available right now. So here are some examples. To the left, we have from Mary Dupree in Washington. She was writing about the transition from gas to electric. I think this is awesome. This is like actually one of my favorite examples, all of these examples here, because they're so uh easy to digest. Like I feel like if I was reading, I don't know much about like I'm 23, I'm not like a homeowner. I don't, but I read these and I get it and I'm like, okay, so that's how I'm gonna like, you know, that's how I'm gonna have a house and I'm gonna make it electric and we're gonna, all see the climate do better because that's what we need. And then here we also have, this is my favorite, the world of battery powered mowers. I think everyone can agree. I mean, even if you don't have a lawn, it's awesome. This is in Idaho. Leonard Garrison writes about the easy task of switching from gas powered lawnmowers to battery powered ones. And then also we've got you're invited to the Citizens Climate Lobby Electric Car Social. This is in Michigan by Linda Steamson, writing about an LTE promoting her chapter's social. I think that's awesome. It's very fun to promote these little, I don't know, just fun ways to get involved in the community. I think that's a great way to get the word out. And then this next one, another topic that we've been talking about for sure, climate extremes, because they're just going to get worse. And I think it's really important for people that are experiencing these climate extremes. I feel very, very lucky to be in a spot that is to be in Chicago, where there's not that many. We don't really get impacted by a lot of it. But I'm from California and I grew up with fires and I see it and I saw what was just happening now and it breaks my heart. So I really want to highlight this, especially from Alex Amonette, who I know is on this call in Montana, talking about with Hattie Hobart, talking about climate extremes like wildfires endangering and affecting Montanians' quality of life. This is like so important. I mean, know, everyone knows somebody that's affected from an extreme. We've got expect a tropical storm to be taking place. And then also we have Karen Jackson, who I also know is on the call in Utah, talking about how nature is a cherished part of your community and how the need to prioritize climate in elections is critical. And then on this next slide, it's also a great, it's really exciting to see, yes, and we have Rob here. It's really exciting. This is also another thing that I love is like, conservatives. I think it's like one of the best ways because we know how polar these topics can become when they shouldn't be. So yeah, we love it when conservative voices are elevated on climate change. We're thrilled to see that Rob Johnson published his LTE about how conservation is conservative, because it is. So thank you, Rob. You're awesome. And then this last slide, I don't see these as often, but it's like so fun because my generation loves podcasts. So I was like having a good time listening to that. And this also, I highlighted this first one is an article, and it's Dr. Joanne Leovy, interviewed by the Nevada Public Radio about her advocacy with CCL. And I also just like have to say, I mean, I'm not really sure how it works when you're submitting, but I know that like images and pretty images and things like that are also very like, they catch people's eyes. It's probably an easier way to get published. But yeah, just a beautiful article written about the intersections between climate change and all of life. And then this other one here down below is it's a radio, let's see. Mary Ann Renz with the Kalamazoo chapter of CCL was interviewed regarding the Energy Permitting Reform Act and its many benefits. And I thought it was super informative as someone that originally didn't know much about it. And then this Green Dragon podcast talks about climate change. It talks about all things from like eco-friendly practices to community-driven efforts that you can get involved in. This one was talking, the latest episode was the Howard Community College Parent Scholars Program. And I don't know, I just think it's like really awesome to see these different forms of media. I don't see it that often. But yeah, it's always very appreciated. So yeah, thank you to everybody on this call that submits awesome LTEs. You are seen, I read them, and I love them.
Thanks, Arnica. That was fantastic. And thank you to you all for all your hard work. It does make us very happy. All right, so we did want to share this very moving op-ed from Jim Bloss. And Jim was a volunteer from Washington State, and he actually, as you can see from the editor's note, he was a regular contributor to the Herald's letter to the editor section, and he died on August 15th at the age of 83, and this was published afterwards. This was his last contribution. So I did just pull out some of the details of this op-ed he wrote, but it was very moving. He was making the point. He was a prolific LTE writer, and he says that he came to this fight quite late, and he wanted to encourage those who were skeptical about climate change to thoroughly investigate the topic like he did later in life. So you can see here, he says, rather than choosing an either or position on these topics, do your own research on all sides of the argument, recognizing that there is a difference of opinion. Take the time to look at the positions presented and somehow get past the biases that we all know we have related to these subjects. Use your God-given gift of critical thinking and don't stop researching until you come to the point where you believe you have finally gotten to the truth of the matter. Then look some more. Question everything until you are sure what you found fits the real reality of it all. 2, recognize that supporters of both positions have created well-structured proofs and can point to best science and research to support their contentions. Understand that everybody has vested interests in their positions, whether it be financial or other reasons, and understanding that, do your research. Either way, whatever you find out, understand it's asking the question that you've at least tried to find the truth of it all. For me, on my own journey, it's come to me that 2 thoughts of Socrates are spot on as relates to addressing this approach for the search for truth. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. That's the bias thing. And all I know is that I know nothing, which means, of course, that the more one learns, the more one needs to learn more. Whatever you find out, understand it's in asking the question that you've at least tried to find the truth of it all. So I just thought that was very, very poignant, like a lovely last op-ed from him. And I just wanted to make the point that sometimes we don't think we have much to say, but this shows how personal perspectives can be really impactful. Sharing your unique experience as a climate advocate just might change someone's mind. So, you know, just being earnest and telling your truth, it really does go a long way.
All right, so coming up.
Yeah, so every month we have our monthly LTE workshop. This is where we invite you to come online for 1 hour. It's the second Wednesday of each month at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. East Coast. It's an opportunity for anyone to spend some focused time writing a letter to the editor or an op-ed if you're a really speedy writer. The workshop features a quick training. We brainstorm about letter ideas, and then we actually mute ourselves and turn off our cameras for 20 minutes. So a few of the people on this call are regulars on that call. They like to come, they always have great ideas, and then they often get published. So it's a really fun workshop. It's also a good thing to send if you have a new person that you want to help you with media in your chapter, or a brand new volunteer who's just finding their feet. It's a good way for them to do something that is, they can do that action in 1 hour, and then it's really exciting for them if they get published. So spread the word in your chapters too. That would be great. So I put the link to the Writers Circle Action Team in the chat. It's a place where we encourage you to share your ideas, what you've written, and we have great interaction in that group. So we have people who are very experienced writers who will encourage you. They will, if you want edits, they will help you with edits. Friendships are formed. Karen and Alex are great friends now. They like tag team on their LTE. So, and we also have a coffee and catch up. You'll find that I'll try and find the link for you in a minute, but it's in the events for that action team. Coffee and catch up is actually tomorrow, provided I have internet after the storm. But it's at 9:30 Pacific and 12:30 East Coast. And we just come on for 30 minutes, and it's really just a bit of a social. So you can come on, you can talk about whatever you've been working on. People kind of brainstorm. We have a few people who write columns and they discuss their ideas together, or like we were celebrating someone had written a climate book on the last call. So it's a nice little social event. So if you have a bit of time, you're very welcome to come along to that. But please do join the Writers Circle if you haven't already, because I think you will find it useful.
And that's what we've got. So there's Charlotte's email if you want to follow up with her on anything. There's my email if you need any specific support or have questions for me. But that is what we've got for you. So thank you all so much for being here. And we look forward to helping you with the op-ed outlines and then celebrating those getting published all between now and Election Day. So let's go make it happen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Citizens Climate Lobby's training program. You can tune into more episodes anywhere podcasts are available. Inspired by what you heard today? Join Citizens Climate Lobby to advocate for bipartisan climate solutions. Go to community.citizensclimate.org to find more trainings, resources, your local chapter, national action teams, discussion forums, and more. Be sure to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and Instagram @CitizensClimate. We also invite all of our listeners to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiration.
Like what you hear? Recommend us to your friends and make sure to give us a 5-star rating. It helps us show up on other listeners' feeds. Feel free to pass on any suggestions for future episodes in the comments as well.
And together, we are creating the political will for a livable world.